invitado, le vamos a pedir que se presente también, claro. ¿Alguna sugerencia en cuanto a la agenda? Que todo está bien. Antes de empezar, ¿sí?
¿Dónde está el...?
Si hay algunos asuntos.
¿El invitado dónde está?
No, me llamaron ayer.
Oh, okay.
Ya lo hizo.
So the agenda is incomplete.
Sí. Carlos Heredia.
Miguel Ángel Rodríguez.
Mario Castañeda.
Víctor Cortés.
Héctor Hernández.
Andrés Guzman.
Candelario Trejo.
Bernardino Echeverría, el fundador. Refugio González.
So, I don't know if everybody knows, but the Pilsen Alliance, it started in 1998 because of the original TIF back in 1998 that Danny Solis started. So this is a fight that Pilsen Alliance was literally created to go against the TIF. So of course they're against the TIF. Now, basically what's going on right now is that Byron Sigcho Lopez is basically continuing the work of Danny Solis. Danny Solis started the TIF in the industrial corridor. Byron Sigcho Lopez now wants to expand it. This is originally what Danny Solis wanted. He wanted to go all the way. But, you know, back in the days, the Resurrection Project was against it. Pilsen Neighbors was against it. They were all fighting against the TIF back in the days. That's why we only have an industrial corridor. Now, basically, Byron wants to expand it and include the residence and commercial area and basically make the entire Pilsen a TIF district. What TIFs do, tax increment financing, what it does, it raises property taxes. That's the only way it can work. So when the alderman is talking about $1 billion TIF expansion, what he's really saying is that I'm going to raise your cost of living by $1 billion. Because the most important question you have to ask somebody about any TIF, if it's $1 billion TIF, $2 billion TIF, is who is paying for it? Who is paying for it? And that's a question you should always ask the alderman. Who is going to pay for this $1 billion TIF expansion? And the answer is the working class, everybody. All the residents of Pilsen, they're going to be the ones, all the homeowners, they're going to be the ones paying for it. Now, as far as this $1 billion increase that's going to happen, all of that money, that $1 billion, goes into a TIF fund. So now it's in the hands of the alderman, the mayor, Department of Planning and Development. So all the extra money now is concentrated in a few people. So what it does, it takes money from everybody and concentrates it into the hands of a few. Capitalism, that's really what it is. It's neoliberalism, it's capitalism. There's nothing leftist or socialist about TIFs. And that is what we're seeing right now in Pilsen. You're seeing a lot of leftist organizations support the TIF and trying to use leftist language to promote and defend TIFs, which the only way TIFs work, again, raising the cost of living, all the extra money goes into the hands of a few. The people who can't afford to stay there anymore now they get kicked out because the cost of living goes up. So again, it's just gentrification all over again, the same thing. And one important thing to know about TIFs and property taxes in general, it's already paying for schools. It's already paying for city colleges, libraries, parks. This is what property taxes already do. What TIFs does is that extra $1 billion, it's not going to go to the schools. It's not going to go to the library. It's not going to go to the city colleges. Again, all that money is now concentrated to the alderman, the mayor, Department of Planning and Development, and they get to decide now how that money is distributed. So all that money, that $1 billion, it's not going to go to the schools. Unless the alderman says, hey, I want to put this amount of money into schools. It all depends on the alderman, the mayor, Department of Planning and Development. So what they're doing is they're playing with people's property taxes. And instead of normally going to the schools, the libraries, and the parks, now it's going into the hands of a politician. And what they're basically telling the community is, hey, trust us. If you can trust us, we'll do the right thing. So basically, ever since, you know, he started having these TIF sessions, a majority of the community does not want it. They're telling him, Pilsen's already been a TIF district for 30 years. What has it brought to our community other than the rising cost of living? And then, yeah, 5 out of 5 meetings that he's held, it's constant opposition. I don't know if you heard about the TIF vote that happened last year in September. He put a community vote. He's like, okay, I want the community to vote on the TIF. Let's vote on the TIF. He had 7 days to put a vote on the TIF. The community voted, and he never released the results. He never released the results until this year, literally about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the results show that 80% of the community was against the TIF. 20% voted for it. Now, who's in favor of this TIF expansion? People that don't pay property taxes, AKA nonprofits. So nonprofits don't pay property taxes. So they also have, they can financially benefit from this $1 billion TIF
More
fund.
churches, right?
Churches as well, they don't pay property taxes. And who's behind pushing the Pilsen, TIF expansion? It's the nonprofit industrial complex, it's Resurrection Project, Pilsen Neighbors, Healthy Hitchai, the churches, the business associations, Byron Sigcho Lopez. All these people are the ones that are pushing for the TIF. They want the TIF because they say it's going to, quote unquote, generate $1 billion in the community. But the truth is, it's going to cost the community, the working class residents. They're going to be the ones paying for the $1 billion, while the nonprofits get to decide how they want to divide up this money that they just took from working class residents.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. I don't think many of us, at least myself included, have a deep understanding of how TIFs work. I understand TIFs were put into place back in the Washington administration, back in 1987, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a progressive move. It was a progressive model. I think the first TIF was set up in the area around Cumberland Park. Okay? And that was positive. Now, how it changed? We don't know. I understand that once Mayor Daley came into power, he changed everything. Like he changed the school Reform Act that had been passed in 1988, changed it in 1985, modified it. So I understand that, but I also understand that there are different types of TIFs. It's not just one type of TIF. And supposedly the original intent was to get enough capital for local improvements, especially improvements that would benefit the residents, not industry, not business, but things were changed. Now my concern is this, I mean, at least from my perspective, and I think most of us, we've been following Sigcho Lopez's record and his stance on different things. He's probably one of the most progressive aldermen in the whole city of Chicago. And I doubt very much if he would go along with the premise that it's going to benefit companies and that the community is going to suffer. So I think we need to look at it a little closer and analyze it adequately. And sometimes if we jump to conclusions, and that conclusion is the wrong conclusion, then we make a lot of mistakes.
So what was your question?
Well, that was my comment.
Let's go. I have a question.
Yeah,
Wait.
Victor,
I have a question. Are you ready for questions?
Yeah, it could be whatever.
Let him finish the presentation, then we can ask questions.
Okay, I think the presentation basically
Whatever you.
I think I basically summarized it very, very briefly, like the overall gist of it. There's many points I could jump into, because another thing I didn't tell people, so I canvassed in the neighborhood. I talked to literally 100 plus residents. We've canvassed, we got 2,000 physical signatures of residents against it. I went to 4 TIF teaching sessions. I've read presentations for the Alderman's office, 3 different types. I've read a presentation from the IPO. I've read news articles on TIFs, and I've read journal articles on TIFs. So I studied this thoroughly. Like I didn't just say like I'm against it because I'm against it, but we can get more into that. But the gist of it, the reason why we're against the TIFs is because it's inherently, in our opinion, it is inherently flawed. You cannot get TIF money without raising the cost of living on the people who live there. And if you raise the cost of living on the people who live there, who is going to suffer? The working class. So you can do it, and that's another thing I also want to make clear. You can do a lot of great things with TIFs. You can use TIFs to, pay for school, infrastructure, and all these things. You could do great things with TIFs. You can, like, there's no doubt about it. But the question is, how did you get that money? Who did you exploit? And that's kind of where we're at, because a majority of the neighborhoods that tend to get targeted as far as the whole TIF increment financing tends to be black and brown neighborhoods. There's articles out there about a lot of black and brown neighborhoods, their money, their TIF districts, going to fund Navy Pier, the 78, a lot of development in the loop. And that's another thing about TIFs. If TIF districts are connecting with each other, like they're right next to each other, you can move that money around in Chicago. And that's what Rahm Emanuel is known for. So that's another thing about TIFs. It's called porting, but it's basically like if TIF districts are next to each other, you can move that money around. But yeah, I'm cool with questions or however you want to do it, because I'm very freestyle, very free-flowing. I'm very just...
Victor.
Yeah, okay, you talk about going to the communities, talk to people. Do people really know what the TIF is?
I say a majority of the time they don't know.
Okay.
A majority of the time they don't know.
All right. Then, as far as I understand, the TIF is already implemented. It's there. So, what I understand also is that this Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez is trying to take money from the TIF to put in the community in different projects. Now, what if he doesn't succeed doing that? What is going to happen to that TIF money? Who is going to? Is the TIF going to disappear, or what are the alternatives? Like for instance, I would ask Pilsen Lines, what is your proposal with the TIF that exists and can't go nowhere? It's going to be there.
Did you want to jump in?
Ya nos dijiste desde el principio que el TIF es algo que nos van a quitar a nosotros como residentes y van a ir a las manos de los individuos que están encima del gobierno, es el gobierno, ya sea local, estatal, lo que sea. Y ellos son los responsables de decidir a dónde va, quién se va a beneficiar de todo eso. Y ahorita, en la actualidad, yo no sé por qué no queremos entender que el TIF Money se ha usado a través de la historia para beneficiar a aquellas comunidades que menos la necesitan, que los que más la necesitan no la tienen. Tenemos comunidades que están completamente en un colapso, que no se pueden salir de la miseria por falta de ese ingreso en la comunidad. Y no hay vuelta de hoja. Si nosotros estamos en defensa de la comunidad, tenemos que estar en contra del TIF, que se vaya al menos que nos prometan que lo van a usar en la comunidad. Está bien que contribuyamos. Miguel.
No, pero ¿cuál era la pregunta? I have a question.
Yeah, no, my question was your question answered? What's your
No,
Oh, no, I didn't answer yet.
Because we jumped in with a position instead of a question.
Okay, so as far as addressing the whole question on what is the alternative to TIFs and what's going to happen to that money if this TIF expansion doesn't go through. So another thing about TIFs that, the Alderman doesn't like to talk about is that you can terminate it. It's called sunsetting a TIF. So basically when you sunset a TIF and terminate a TIF district, all that money, let's say it has $3 million accumulated, that money will go back into the city funding. So again, property taxes. This is going to be a little complicated, but for every dollar property taxes that residents pay, 53% automatically goes to schools, automatically. So if we have, let's say, $300 million in TIF money right now, and you were to abolish that TIF right now, bare minimum, $150 million would go back to CPS. I don't know if you've seen about what's happening in CTU. There's articles that CTU is also calling to get rid of TIFs. They want to de-TIF the entire city of Chicago because they understand that all that money, basically Chicago has $3 billion right now in TIF money. $3 billion right now in Chicago. Another thing about TIFs is that it's basically a shadow budget. So this $3 billion, it's outside of Chicago's city budget. Chicago has a city budget that it allocates funds to all these things. But again, TIF, it's outside of that because TIF took that money from the city budget. So, if you want to.
Thank you. I have a question. So when the alderman came and spoke before us, he said that he just wanted to deal with the TIF, with the money, with what's happening right now, and that I guess he made it sound like he was open to not having any more TIFs after. So I could not quite understand. Is there like a the current TIF is like is it expired, and then he said we're going to use the money for good things, and then there will be no more TIF. I don't know, but. Can you?
So the current TIF is in the industrial corridor. That's the one that started in 1998 by Danny Solis. It was supposed to expire in 2022, but Byron extended it to 2034 now. So what he's probably talking about is keeping that current industrial TIF, but Pilsen Alliance is basically calling to terminate that TIF and give that money back to the community, basically. Because again, if he keeps that current industrial TIF, cost of living is going to go up. I could go very, very detailed into this, but basically Pilsen right now, the commercial and residential area of Pilsen right now, that's not a TIF district, is surrounded by TIFs, like the UIC TIF, the Roosevelt TIF, like it's literally surrounded by TIFs.
Is there language in existence that can you can redesignate a TIF? Like if it's an industrial TIF, can you change the designation of industrial?
Ooh, you mean like redraw the map?
No, just change the focus. If the idea is if it's an industrial TIF, it's the emphasis is industry.
Yeah.
Get rid of the designation and redesignate the TIF. Not get rid of, but redesignate for local development projects.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. But that industrial TIF is basically in the industrial corridor, which basically the polluters in Pilsen have access to. Like they have access to that money. In order for the schools or any, let's say we're talking about Juarez. Let's say it wasn't in the TIF district. Basically, Juarez would need to be within the TIF district to get access to that money.
Okay.
So if that answers your question, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, but can changes be made, not just to the map of the TIF,
But just the name of it?
designation?
That I'm not too sure because I know like it's an industrial corridor. Once you start going into like where 18th Street is, that's a commercial and resident area. So, yeah, that part I'm not too sure.
Can you respond on that, the industrial corridor? So you're saying, where is the industrial corridor in Pilsen?
It's basically behind Cermak, like Cermak and behind.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going towards like 18th Street. It's everything in Cermak and behind. And south, there you go. South of Cermak, yeah.
So right now there's no TIF up for the majority of the residents of Pilsen?
Exactly. And that's another thing we try to tell people. Sometimes, a pro-TIF talking point is Pilsen is already a TIF district. It's already there. Why are we arguing about this? And the thing is, technically, it's only the industrial corridor, not the entirety of Pilsen. What Byron wants to do is make the whole entire Pilsen a TIF district, residential and commercial. So now, and then again, reason why we're against it, because now the residents will be the ones paying for it and all that kind of stuff.
Right now, paying for it.
All right. First of all, thank you for coming in. La pregunta es que uno, you're stating that the cost of living is going to affect, this will affect the cost of living. I think that statement is not true.
Not
because,
cost of living.
You said cost of living. No, you said cost of living.
Property taxes.
I know, it's property tax, it's not cost of living.
Well, you want to get increased.
It's the cost of living. And I think that's not accurate. TIFs are basically collecting taxes on properties, correct? So if you're a property owner, you're going to be affected by the TIF, all right? If you're a renter, the owner is going to make sure that you pick up that bill of a TIF. Okay?
Rent goes up.
Now, the other thing is that if the corridor is already governed by the TIF, the industrial corridor, and Byron is trying to change that to include all of Pilsen, what is his procedure to do that? Well, how can you actually do that to include all Pilsen as a TIF?
How can he make the Pilsen resident.
area a TIF.
So right now, in the process, as far as the process that we're in, he's already proposed it to Department of Planning and Development. They already had a vote for it. They voted yes. Now it's in the Finance Committee. So basically, this current whole TIF expansion proposal, it's in the Finance Committee. And again, they were supposed to vote for it last year for the Finance Committee. And it got delayed because there was a lot of community opposition. They've gotten overwhelming letters of, against the TIF expansion. And basically, the Finance Committee said, hey, we're going to have to delay this and we can't vote for this right now. So it's basically been delayed and delayed. It's basically stuck in the Finance Committee. As far as the whole TIF expansion proposal, it's stuck in the Finance Committee. But the next Finance Committee meeting is September 15th, Monday. So we're basically going to see what's going to happen, because from what Lucia, Byron's chief of staff, told us in a TIF review committee meeting, they told us apparently that this TIF expansion proposal is not going to go through because it's going to expire within a year from when it was proposed last year. So that's the part we're trying to figure out right now. But basically, as far as the whole process, like where it is in legislation, it's in the Finance Committee and it has to be voted for by the Finance Committee. If it goes through, then it goes to City Council, and then City Council votes for it and then it approves. So we're literally like in the last month of the whole process, and we've basically been stuck in that process for like a whole year. And yeah, that's basically where it's at right now.
So are you saying that is the alderman or the alderman's office saying that he's not in favor of moving forward the proposal?
They're saying that the proposal itself is not going to go through a year after it first was proposed. It's just going to expire or something like that. They told us this verbally. We asked for it in writing. They didn't want to give it to us in writing. Now, as far as the alderman, I've been to the TIF info sessions. He always told the residents, I am not for the TIF. I am not against the TIF. I am for what the community wants. 3 days after the last TIF info session last year, he was seen with the Pilsen Preservation Collective in favor of it, holding a sign that says, I want the TIF. So we're seeing him tell us one thing, but his actions show something different. So as far as the meetings go, he'll always tell people, I'm not for or against it, I'm for what the community wants. But yeah, he's basically in favor of it.
My impression was that he